Hello, hi there everyone. Mohammed Najmi here, and welcome to the segment of reflections and reactions. So, in this episode today, what I have for you is actually a bit of expansion on one of my tweets earlier, and I thought I would make a video format of it. So, it talks about having tolerance of another, but there being a limit to the tolerance. Tolerance without, as I say, without temperance for measure, it leads to social collapse. So now, why do I say that, and why do I have come to those thoughts actually as well? Is well, I've been somewhat, perhaps it would be right to say, I've been somewhat over emotional since 7th of October, and something that I have to admit. Two of my absolute red lines um, have always been sort of around cruelty and physical abuse towards women and any sort of abuse towards children. I cannot imagine what those people would have gone through when Hamas did what they did in Israel. And it's not a simple condemnation, sort of like I condemn what Hamas did, it's just sort of like a meaningless, hollow statement, usually followed by a but. Right? The cruelty is unimaginable. And it hasn't been that long, and people seem to have already forgotten. I try to put myself in those people's places, and it literally aches my heart. I mean, I cannot take it. That wasn't an attack, it wasn't an attack, an army attacking another army, and then having collateral damage, which is bad in itself, which is what we have seen with Israeli army responding as well. That is different. This was target because they haven't, the armies, the more senior ones at least, they're not targeting civilians. Civilians happen to be collateral damage, and as sad as that is, it's part of war, which I hope one day we can just stop having wars, but that's a different discussion. This was different, and people need to recognize this was different. This was targeting of innocent civilians, and not just a shot in the head as well, which would have been preferable in most circumstances. This was torture, rape, brutal humiliation, agonizing pain as the evidence have unfolded since then. How can anyone be okay with it? How can anyone want to justify it? It has no justification. And I understand people want to shield themselves from that information because it will affect their mental health, as it clearly has mine. But see, that is unfortunately what makes people not understand the meaning of never again. When evil shows itself to you, don't avert your eyes. See it and know it, so you know exactly what to oppose when it appears. Again, I don't care about the ethnicity or the conflict or the region per se. It is an emotional red mist moment for me when I see any kind of harm against innocent women and children, and I think so that might be the same for most guys, for most men, and for most decent people, regardless whether they're men or women. You combine that with the call for acceptance of a religion whose extremism is an underlying factor to such acts, and it enrages me even more. I know this religion. I went away from it. I know these kind of people and I distance myself from it. Even here in England, with the terrorist attacks and the British-born jihadis traveling to support ISIS, and what happened in the north of England, with the sexual abuse of thousands of girls, English girls, that should have opened the eyes of the English people or of the British people. But no, the government and the authorities and the mainstream media shielded us from that reality for whatever end they had. That is irrelevant. The fact is that the mass public was shielded from the horrors and from the wrongness of those situations and acts. This sexual perversion is a factor within these this it connects it. That is a factor within the radical Islam as well. Everything is to do with it. Women as sex slaves for bounties of war, child brides, 4 wives, 72 virgins in heaven, putting burqas and niqabs on women, and subjugating them. A lot of it revolves around such depraved deviance. That is another additional factor. The sex grooming gangs scandals in the north of England, as horrific as they were not surprising to me. Knowing that most of those men were from places like Pakistan, that as well was not surprising to me. Although the nuance that people forget is they were either those who have immigrated or who have been second generation from particular parts of Pakistan, not from metropolitan areas in majority from metropolitan areas from within Pakistan. There is a difference over there because there's a literacy and educational difference as well, and the difference of attitudes and different towards modernity. People from metropolitan area are starkly different from Pakistan, who you won't see doing such things or thinking such way or endorsing such perversions or such extreme standpoints, which is why you see mostly Muslims from impoverished countries and regions being extremists in their outlook. Because education and prosperity alleviates people from the sickness. And it is important to note that. I have many friends, and actually a lot of my friends in and from Pakistan who are categorically against such behavior. I have theological differences with them, but no qualms on these sort of matters. Them I would classify as the actual moderates, not even in this country, from within Pakistan. They live over there and they are the actual moderates, but they are in minority, but they still are. But I also know that particular kind of people who are so degraded that they do not see white women and non-Muslim women as human beings. It is a mixture of being desensitized towards them by overconsumption of Western pornography, which is the Western pornography mainly involving white women, and the religious undertone of bounty of conquest, which is the right to have sex slaves. The result is that they see them as fair game. It is a very disturbing thing to realize. It's not. It's hard for us to understand from our liberal mindset about such things. So that would be the first point, to recognize that they don't think like us. They, as in the particular radical Islamist, and they are the ones who, certain members of theirs are the ones who either come over here or are second and third generation over here, who are radicalizing other Muslims other youths, Muslim youths. So that is a huge factor that needs to be recognized. And but why do I say this, right? Because there is a difference of what's happening in Israel and what's happening in Britain, even though they are linked, but there's a difference of what's happening. So why do I say this? And I say this because these are the same underlying attitude that are used by such people to justify the atrocities committed by Hamas on Israeli women and children. Although I have to admit, the children aspect, like, that shocked me even more, because that's going even beyond. There's no negotiating with this sort of evil. You have to realize that. You cannot appeal to the humanity of monsters because they have none. And I poke the Muslims at times, not because I'm an ex-Muslim and because I'm filled with some sort of hatred towards them. No, I'm attacking an ideology, or rather critiquing an ideology which enables them to forget their humanity. I want them to do better. I left the religion for this very reason, because I did not agree with the fundamentals of the religion. But in combination with that, I did not believe anymore in the existence of the God of religion anymore. The God of religion is a bit different than the God himself. And that included any religion, right? But if you still want to believe in a religious God, then you must reconcile the fundamentals that leads you to treat others inhumanely. You must temper it. You must reform it. You must adjust it. As has been done with all religions over time. You cannot expect me or anyone to respect you as a Muslim and consider you as good if you are not willing to stop calling for our deaths, the deaths of the ex-Muslims, or the deaths of the Jews, just because we disagree with you, or critique your beliefs, or even make fun of it. Your relationship with God is personal, but your relationship with other human beings is beyond your person. And you need to understand this point, you as a Muslim. Otherwise, you and your religion will never be compatible with the West. And you will always feel like an outsider. Because you are choosing to be an outsider by having that attitude. And if your attitude is that you don't want to be compatible, but instead want to be the conqueror, then don't play the victim. Okay? When you get rightly slapped, when you get rightly critiqued, when you get rightly punished, don't play the victim. Because what you're doing is you're acting the extremist, you're enabling the extremist, you're endorsing the extremist when you don't reject the extreme from within your ranks. And then when there's a pushback, you try to play the victim. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work anymore. And for the West itself, the West needs to realize that there is a limit to tolerance. The tolerance of another without temperance for measure, without some sort of red lines, it just leads to, and it will lead to, social collapse. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you for listening.